Hey guys, Steve here from Shock Therapy, and it is a Tech Tuesday like no other because we have a ton of time off. We had Christmas, by the way, Merry Christmas. Hopefully you guys had a good one and good New Year's coming up this weekend. And so we had a lot of time off, but we are going to be talking about the rear hub, rear arm, complete suspension design on the back corner of the new RZR Pro R. So in order to do that, I'm going to send it over to the man, the myth, not the legend, Justin Smith over that way. Wait, where'd he go? Where is he? Thank you, Steve. Appreciate that very much for the introduction. That's awesome. And we got two new guys helping us out here. Well, not new, but over here we got Dominic.
Howdy.
He's going to be looking for your guys' questions. And we also have Brandon, too, resident experts. So if you guys have anything, then go ahead and shoot. They're going to fire them off. Make sure you guys raise your hand so I can see. But what we're talking about today is some of the components that are on the new RZR Pro R. Before I get into that, I want to touch base on a couple of comments on our unboxing video of the Pro R. People gave us a lot of crap, I think, because, I don't know, comments like Polaris paying us, stuff like that. I got news for you. Nobody pays me but me, and they invited us out to go and drive those around and take a look at it. I enjoy new cool stuff. I really like new engineering and the thought process that goes into it and how we're going to be able to use that stuff as UTV enthusiasts. So we went out there and merely talked about what we saw, tried to give you a little bit of a in-depth look at some of the things that nobody really talks about on that thing. And we asked them what they wanted to touch upon, if there were some certain criteria, like names of the suspension, that they have 3 pillars, things like that, that they said that they wished that we used, which we did. But basically every single thing we did was what we saw and we talked about. So it is an unboxing, not a review. We'll be giving you a review once we get some seat time in those things, and we do have one coming next week. We did not take the rear corner off of our Pro R, though. This is a rear corner that we ripped off somebody else's. I can't tell you who it is. As a matter of fact, because I can't tell you because they don't know we ripped the corner off of their car yet. They're finding out maybe next week. So that phone call is going to be fun when we get it. Anyway, some of the things that are going on in this system, if you want to zoom in a little bit on it, if you guys take a look at overall construction of this trailing arm, I'm going to go into some of the bracketry that we see on the back side of this once we get some parts out of here, so you can understand the structure that they've thrown in this, the beefiness in this system, and because of the beefiness, obviously some weight. But what Polaris is calling this suspension system is called a Max Link. Their Max Link system is basically a normal Polaris upper and lower radius rod, or a 2 radius rod system in the back to control camber through cycle. In addition to that, if you look at what a Can-Am has, and you can see that on this Can-Am right here, you've got a 3-link system. You got an upper and a lower like a Polaris, and the center one is a toe link. That toe link is controlling the toe of the rear tire via that hub, and as the system cycles, it's controlling the toe in the rear. On a normal Polaris without a toe link control, you get a lot of toe change. As it compresses, they typically are towing in, and as they droop out, you see a lot of, like a Turbo S or an XP Pro or Pro XP, you're going to see a lot of toe out, fully drooped. Well, this new Max Link suspension has got toe control just like a Can-Am, but in a different form through a different link, the Max Link. The reason that they are running this system is because you have to get around patents, and people like Can-Am protect their stuff. So you can't run a 3-link system on it. They've got to run it in another direction. So this red front link, or Max Link, is a toe control. This adjustment or adjustability through this system is keeping the toe set on this hub facing forward and eliminating the bump steer. I'm going to force it to move in and out because this whole hub you can see pivots, but watch, that whole system can pivot inward. It's tight, so give me a second to fix it. Actually, I'm going to pry this out. So I just bumped this toe out just so you guys could see that. And I'm trying to pull it back in if possible. There we go. So now you can see how this whole system can pivot, changing toe throughout cycle. There's an upper pivot joint in the hub. There's a lower pivot joint as well, just like in a Can-Am system. As a matter of fact, Dom, can you grab one of those unprepped hubs off the red workbench? I'll show you guys one of a Can-Am hub or a billet hub off a Can-Am, how it's got upper lower joints as well. Thanks, man. So this rear hub for a Can-Am actually would go on there like that. You see how much smaller the overall system is? But look, that's your upper joint and lower joint compared to this upper joint and this lower joint that this system pivots on. So this is doing the same thing on a Can-Am as this one does. This one's controlled by this toe link, which is adjustable. If you zoom in right here, you can see that this is on a cammed washer. It's called an eccentric adjustment, or eccentric cam adjustment. So as you spin, rotate this back and forth, you see how that link rotates forward and backward? That is going to do the same thing, or that is controlling your toe set. So if the link is bolted to the chassis in the front and you start to rotate that, then you're basically changing the toe. That control can be done with the wheel on the vehicle. So you can get at it through the wheel and you can come in the back and adjust it, setting the toe while it's on the ground and the tires are on it. So you don't have to jack it up and settle it back down and drive around the block to get all that stuff done. It's actually very fast and easy. Or if you're racing and you bend something, you can reset it without having to replace half the stuff on the car and finish your race. So it's really good forethought, in my opinion, on all that. You guys good?
Not one question yet.
We're having some audio issues on Facebook. It's cutting in and out, so if you want to tell people to watch on Instagram, if not, it'll be on YouTube in about an hour and a half.
Gotcha. So if you guys are watching on Facebook, then we apologize for the audio. Go over to Instagram and watch this live, or you can see the edited version on YouTube a little bit later today. So do what you need. So toe control in the new Polaris. That's a huge thing. That is stability, because if the tires are going in and out through cycle, then basically you're not the tire is scrubbing slightly and it's not stable. With the tire keeping zero toe deflection or no bump steer in the rear, then it's going to go straight through the whoops. It's not going to walk around on the back and you constantly fighting where it's going to go, especially as the whoops get bigger. So that's a giant step forward in stability with power and weight, all considered at the same time. Another feature on this rear assembly is the actual bearing assembly itself. This drive flange and bearing is a unitized hub. That unitized name is something that Polaris has used to try and simplify the fact of what it is. Means that the drive flange, the splined surface on the inside for the axle, and the bearing assembly is all one unit. So no longer do you assemble everything one piece at a time. I'm going to take it out. We've in advance taken half the hardware out of here. So this unit right here is your complete bearing and drive assembly. And this is the same unit on the front of the car as it is on the rear, left side to right side. So you can carry one spare with you if it's a race car or even a heavy play car, a pre-runner. You can carry one spare with you. This thing probably weighs 4.5 pounds. And that would be, this would swap out front to rear. So no matter which one you hurt, you've got an extra one with you. You don't have to carry fronts, rears, lefts, rights, all that other BS. The spare parts are limited.
Justin, AZ Desert Rat is asking, does the design offer a better toe adjustment or control compared to the X3?
Yes. So in case you guys didn't hear that, the question was, does this system allow for a better toe control or adjustment than an X3? I think it does. It's easier to set the toe on this because you don't have to take the wheels and tires off. On an X3, you have to pull the wheel and tire off to get access to that toe link bolt, or you have to pull the wheel and tire off to get access to the jam nuts to change the toe. So this is a lot easier to get to. It does the same thing, so you can set the toe no matter what by adjusting it, but having the wheel and tire on it is certainly a lot easier, and I think that's better when it comes to what we do, having to work on it. Another thing too, even though a Can-Am has toe control through cycle, through 24 5 inches of wheel travel, it still has over 1.5 inches of bump steer on a Can-Am. That's a whole lot better than 5 inches on some of the earlier Polarises. And so we take it for what it's worth. It's better than the rest. But in the new Pro R, they've got a 1/2 degree of change through 24 inches. 1/2 degree translates to 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch of change. I mean, basically next to nothing. So it does have better geometry through in discussing just its toe control. Hopefully that answers your question. You got anything over there, Brandon?
No, nothing.
You can pipe in any time if you want to. I do
Audio's
backflips.
bad on Facebook, so I'm not really getting much.
Okay, cool.
How easy, J-Hubs, how easy will it be to get toe measurements before and after? How much changes can you make?
So we haven't played with one in person to tell you how much adjustment there is. I would imagine it's probably in the range of 2 inches, just on a guess. But once we play with it, I'll let you know. I don't see any problem with being able to measure this before and after you make an adjustment. So that part's easy to do, I think. Next, what I don't have here is a brake rotor and a caliper for you. But one thing about the brake rotor assembly is that when the rotor is on this drive flange, it's the same rotor front to rear as well as this hub assembly is too. So one rotor covers the whole car, one hub or one unitized hub covers the whole car, drops your spares way down. In the rear, when it comes to axles, I know the left and the right axle are the same, so you only have to carry one. In the front, the right and the left axle are the same, but it is different from the rear. So you can carry a front axle, you can carry a rear axle, and it'll cover both left and right sides, so that helps you out as well. One other thing, a couple of things I wanted to show you, but I take an upper link out and show you that is 14 millimeter hardware. Huge. For instance, there's 12. Big change. This is, somewhere between 1/2 inch and 5/8. This joint, I got big hands, and that still is a big joint in here. That is somewhere similar to a 3/4 inch rod end to 7/8 rod end. It's giant. The links themselves are substantial. It's 1.25 inch upper. This lower, pull that one out. That's 1.5 inch diameter tubing. And by feel, this is probably 120 wall on the bottom. So giant radius rods. I don't know that there's going to be a need to change them in the normal play side of things. Maybe we'll have to be changing those when it comes to racing. Or if you want to go to billet or higher clearance than that, then there'll probably be a need for those. But I think it's going to be important that whoever is making radius rods for these has 3/4 inch rod ends or bigger. Otherwise, you end up going to a smaller joint than stock, and there's no point in doing that. On this arm, come on over here real quick. See how this rear support around the radius rod system, it's a double shear system, and it's welded to the arm. In other models, there's no double shear. If there is, it's not welded. It's just a secondary piece, not part of the arm. So this is much stronger when it comes to bending hardware, or if you wreck it, you're not going to break stuff off really easy inside the radius rod area. And that is massive when it comes to strength and design all the way around. I'm going to pop the hub out real quick. If you guys got any questions, and shoot, because I got to get that.
Justin, Scout Racing's asking if you think the car is going to be leaving the UTV class in Best in the Desert.
Do I think it's going to what?
Be leaving the UTV class.
Leaving or leaving?
Leaving. Like bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So does he mean, is it going to leave everybody in the dust?
He says, and headed toward its own racing class.
Yeah, so there is, it already has its own racing class. In Best in the Desert, it's called Pro Open. Kind of merged a few classes into Pro Open, but that is the only place this car is going to live because of the CC of the engine. And some other small rules that they've got in there. If you read them, you'll understand that they kind of made the class for this. So you're not going to see a Pro R racing against the turbo, unlimited turbos or Pro Turbo class for sure. It's going to be its own spot. That's another interesting point that you bring up, because some people have asked us if we would change our car selection or manufacturer in racing, so go from Can-Am to this because it's bitching. Well, it is awesome, but we're not making any changes like that anytime soon. Mainly, it's a brand new car, it's a brand new year. I like to let it settle in for a year and find out where the issues are, if there are any or not. Also, we don't want to race against ourselves. So there's only going to be 1 or 2 people in that class. It's not like you're racing against all the manufacturers and all the fast shoes and everywhere. So we're not going to go into a class with very little people in it for the first year. We're going to stay where all the fast guys are and the best guys are, race the best and try and beat them. So we're not making any changes there right away. All right. There is the spindle on a Pro R. So obviously you got your bolt pattern and you've got self-centering assembly for the bearing assembly to sit. That's awesome to have step in this bearing into the arm, because then all the loads that are trying to shear this off are not on just the bolts. It's actually, you could almost run the bolts loose and not shear this out of the hub by the way that's designed. So that's a good thing. Look at the size of these joints. Here is a full tilt race hub upper joint that we run right now in our Pro car compared to this factory joint. It is a giant step up. So you guys have to understand, this is the size of the components. These are the size of components that you're dealing with in a Pro R. It's basically closer to a Class 10 or a real road car that you would drive on the street that's much bigger than it is a UTV. So awesome. What do you got, Dom?
Some would say it's called a Willie Nelson joint.
Very good. Excellent. I like that. So now that we got the arm about halfway taken apart, you can see some of the structure that's in here. All of the plates that are in here are 3/16 thick, which is massive compared to what normal would be. On the earlier arm stuff, you're looking at 60 thousandths wall with 90 thousandths tabs or 60 thousandths tabs. These are 3 times bigger and thicker. Plus, you've got shouldered spuds welded everywhere. What this does is it keeps you from hogging the hole out or wallowing the hole out, which is common on a lot of models. So all of that's been taken care of and handled. You're not going to have these holes wear out. Factory rock scraper or mud scraper off of the wheel. So this could be adjusted for different wheels. You can go different heights with this on your own, of course. I don't think that Polaris is offering options. But since this bolts on, you can make your own extension for different wheels and scrape all of the rocks and things out of it before it ruins a wheel or a brake caliper. Factory mud guard up in the front. These can obviously be changed. Again, this is probably not an option for Polaris, but you can make these any shape you want to fit the wheel and tire offset that you're running. Overall construction of this arm is just huge. Look at the backside. Again, all the boxed in assemblies, all of the fat plate, 1 3/4 diameter tube for the upper and lower structure with boxed in assembly too. Same giant front joint as are running in the hub. So same joint roughly that's in the radius rods. So just gigantic parts. Dom, you got anything for me?
Jay Hups just asked about racing again. Do you see all the fast guys moving to the Pro R since it looked like it handled the race terrain better?
Well, I don't. The reason I don't see the fast guys going there is that, what is a Pro R going to race against? You're not going to have manufacturers fighting it out. You're just going to have a Pro R racing against a Pro R. So that doesn't do very good marketing when it comes to racing and what the manufacturers want to see out of racing. So I just don't see, you're not going to see a ton of guys going there right away. Maybe as a competition to this comes out in a year or two, then I think you're going to see the class grow. But until then, my guess is no. How about, Brandon, can you grab that geyser arm over on the table right there?
Yeah.
Vinyl wrap installer, are those joints going to be able to be changed with a better one such as FK?
I imagine that's going to happen pretty soon. I couldn't tell you. Here, let's throw that in front. I couldn't tell you if there is a FK joint that fits that OD yet. My guess is no. But once we get this stuff apart in the next couple of weeks, we'll source it and see if there's some components that can swap in and out. If there are not any right now, then somebody's going to be making it pretty soon. Maybe we'll make it, but there'll be things available so you can jump into an FK. My guess, though, is you're not going to have to go to an FK. I think you could stay with the stock stuff on here and not wear it out. And if you do, it's going to be probably cheaper to run another stock one than doing that, but we'll see.
And Quade Pete's asking, all bigger and better components also add weight.
Yes.
How heavy is the car and how does it feel versus a standard car?
Okay, so the weight of the car is in the neighborhood of 2,100 to 2,200 pounds. That is massively heavier than your normal not Pro Turbo, I'm sorry, thinking racing, but your normal Turbo X3 or Pro XP right now are about 1,600 to 1,700 pounds. So you're looking at 400 to 500 more pounds in this one than anything else. That's huge. I have driven it. I'm reserving my opinions about details about how it drives until our review, because I kind of want you guys to get a really honest feel for it. I only drove it for about 15, 20 miles at the most. And so, but I will tell you this, that it does not feel heavy with the power that's in it. It runs great and the motor sings. It's not some low-end grunting deal. It actually revs high and makes a ton of power right away. Clutch engagement's super smooth. It's fun to drive. It feels, so our race car well, I'm not gonna tell you what our race car weighs, but most race cars are in the 21 to 2,500 pound range. And in that weight range, that's the adequate amount of tubing for the rules to be safe and legal, adequate amount of structure built into trailing arms and front arms and hubs and bearings and wheel and tire assemblies so that it doesn't break, adequate amount of interior components for radios and coolers and fans and all that kind of stuff. That's how much weight it takes to have a successful race car that doesn't break and go floored all day. That's the same weight as the Pro R. So if you compare a Pro R to other turbo factory stuff, it's heavy. Does it drive like that? I don't think so. It drives a lot like a real race car does. It's planted, feels strong, solid, and I don't think it's going to break. So I think that the Pro R should be compared to a lot of race cars as opposed to being compared to all the other cars that are out there, because you can't drive those at 1,700 pounds hard and expect them to live. Not going to happen. So different comparison. On trailing arms, this is a Geyser boxed trailing arm for our Can-Am. This is what we race. It is extremely strong, a lot of engineering in this arm, and they live. Like, incredibly, with the abuse that we put through these things, they live. Look at that compared to this Pro R. Not only is the Pro R arm bigger, beefy, or more burly in all ways, but it has a lot of the same technology, like shoulder spuds, double sheared mounting that's welded on. Here's shoulder spuds in this system, double shear. Complete boxing as it goes forward down the shock mount. Same thing in this system. We've got mud flaps on our race car. This has mud flaps as well. Brake line tabs are already built into this arm, just like we have them too. Large uniball joints, already large uniball joints. So I know I'm comparing a Can-Am race arm to a factory Polaris R arm, but I kind of want you to see that there's a lot here. It should be considered when you're looking at weight, because imagine if you bought a car at 1,700 pounds and you wanted to keep it alive when you're going to beat on it. You're going to build a car that weighs 2,200 pounds. Well, this already has it. So a lot of things to consider. You guys got any questions for me since I'm pretty much done talking about parts?
Todd Richardson is asking, how strong is the roll cage compared to an aftermarket? Well, I believe it's a 2-inch roll cage.
It is. It's 2-inch tubing. It's also one piece. So unlike other factory cages that bolt together in multiple spots, it doesn't have any of that. It's all welded as one unit. I was looking at the structure when we were driving that thing. I think you could basically race the cage. I don't know how thick the wall thickness is and if it would be legal for any of the classes. We have to check into that later. But it looks extremely strong. And the engineers at Polaris told me that they had done crash testing at 80 and 90 miles an hour with that. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I would agree. That
You
car
know,
was-
compared to an aftermarket one, I don't know. We'll see what the aftermarket ones look like. But I know there's millions of dollars of engineering that goes into that cage design from Polaris, so it'd be hard to be better than that in some ways.
Jeff Murda, off topic. Anything coming out for shock tuning with the factory ECU for the X3 with smart shocks?
Yeah, we've been working on that for some time. I couldn't tell you when we're going to be done because it's an ongoing project, but we work on it every single day. Probably going to see something mid-year where you're going to have flashable and tunable systems for smart shocks and also for dynamics. All that is coming. Cool stuff. Brandon's like, what?
Oh, yeah.
He's like, I do shocks all day and I didn't even know that. He's like, do I have a job? Yeah, you're still going to have a job, guaranteed. We're going to be getting
all I
inside
need.
of them anyway, no matter what. Any other questions? Are we out of here?
Pretty much it.
The only,
What do you got?
the only question I had was if we were going to be out in Glamis for New Year's, and I was just going to say that we're out there right now.
We are there right this second. Thanks for bringing that up. So the crew is actually working. They were there working on Monday. They're there today. Wednesday, Thursday is a half a day. So get over there if you need some parts or components. I think they're booked, but you might want to talk to them about it and see if they can get any other work done for you. We're actually packing up right this second and headed out there ourselves. So we'll be there this afternoon and give them a hand. And if you guys don't have anything you need to get done, stop over there, talk to Steve, Mitch, Lauren, say hi to them anyway. They always like talking to everybody. So if you guys have more questions about any of this stuff, make sure you put comments in the YouTube video when it's loaded up, which I guess it would be loaded up right now if you're watching this video and me talking about it being on YouTube, right? It's on YouTube. And we'll try and answer them for you. Hopefully we gave you a little bit of information that you didn't already know about the back corner on a Pro R. So if you have any questions about other things like components that we make or offer, go to shocktherapist.com or shocktherapyusa.com or give us a call at 623-217-4959 and talk to the awesome people on the phone and they'll answer all your questions too. Thanks for tuning in for Tech Tuesday. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas.